From Deputy Richard Boyd Barrett.
Sir, discrimination in employment is illegal. There was a long struggle going way back to the 1830s in the United States, right up to the 70s in this country, for equality in employment, to make it unacceptable to discriminate against any category of people. Yet, in the last number of weeks, we have had teachers angrily protesting, taking strike action because you refuse to commit to the basic principle of equal pay for equal work. Are you going to commit to that principle? It's very simple.
Thank you, Minister.
Well, I think we dealt with this question just a short time ago with Deputy Paul Murphy, where I explained to the Deputy that the way in which teachers are employed, I mean, there is increments, so that teachers aren't paid equal amounts. It depends on their experience, and they could be up to 60,000 or someone, or, as I said, a person who was recruited last year will, under the deal I negotiated, see an increase of 6,700 in their pay to 37,700 in January 2018. Now, in terms, as you know, during the crash, there were changes in public service pay and in new entrants pay, and we have used both Haddington Road and Lansdowne Road to negotiate changes. Under that negotiation, I've restored 3/4 of the lifetime earnings for the new earners who were affected by that change. And I've no doubt that a successor agreement, the issue of new entrants pay, will be again on the agenda, and we will sit down with unions, but particularly with unions right across the public sector, not just with one union who is outside of the Lansdowne Road agreement. So we need to address this in a way that's fair to all trade unions, to all people who saw an impact on new entrant pay. And that's the approach that we will take, and that's the approach that Minister Paschal Donoghue has outlined.
Thank you. Deputy Boyd Barrett.
Minister, first of all, I don't think it's very helpful to engage in what is a disingenuous response to a straightforward question about increments. We all know there's increments, and that in the public sector there's always been increments, so you go up a pay scale. The issue here is there's 2 different pay scales. In fact, there's 3 different pay scales for people who have exactly the same training and experience. So just, don't try and blur the issue with an untruth. The issue is, why are teachers with the same experience, they could be the same age, getting paid on a different pay scale? Earning for doing the same job, working in the same school, teaching the same classes, getting €6,000 or €8,000 less for doing the same job. That's just straightforward discrimination. Over their lifetime, the difference could be as much as €200,000, the cost of a house. So how can you stand over this discrimination? And will you, this is what I question, will you commit to end the discrimination and the inequality for teachers?
All right, Minister.
As I explained to the Deputy, during the recession there were restrictions placed on new entrants' pay, and that applied to right across the public services, not a matter for teachers. Now, that is an issue that has been tabled within Lansdowne Road, and we sat down with the unions who are within Lansdowne Road, the TUI and the INTO, and we negotiated on their agenda. And as a result of that negotiation, we have closed the gap to effectively 3/4 of the lifetime earnings. Indeed, the scales have been merged now at certain points, so that scales are identical for certain parts of the career as a result of some of the negotiation that's taken place over the period. And I've no doubt that new entrants' pay will be an issue in the next pay round, and we will again sit down with all of the trade unions, along with other demands that they may have, and seek to negotiate those in a successor agreement. And we are sitting down now with the ASTI in the Teacher Conciliation Council to seek to resolve this and many other issues that they've raised. But I would say to the Deputy, and I know he mightn't like to hear it, we have to balance. For example, carers didn't get an increase for 8 years. This year we're able to give carers an increase.
Thank you, Minister.
So we have to balance the resources we have available to the different demands that are coming. Rightful demands for pay restoration, but also rightful demands to invest in health, in housing, and homelessness. The Deputy also will articulate the need for.
Deputy.
The argument, if you made some of these vulture funds and super profitable corporations pay their taxes, there'd be money, right? Now, the issue I'm asking about is discrimination. And to say there's a negotiation, what is to negotiate on ending inequality? There's nothing to negotiate. You can negotiate pay increases and all that, fair enough, right? But that's not the question. Why are you using inequality as a bargaining chip for teachers or other groups of public sector workers? It is fundamentally unfair, and you're just not getting the point. And you shouldn't be using it as a bargaining chip for future negotiation. You should acknowledge it is pay apartheid. It should be illegal. Any other category of discrimination against women, LGBT people, racial minorities is illegal. And yet you have managed to impose this arbitrary discrimination in employment, which is illegal for every other category, on the basis of whether you happen to come into a profession before or after 2010 or 2011. Are you going to end the apartheid?
Minister, to conclude.
I think, first of all, I think it's worth pointing out to the Deputy that differences in new entrant pay to people who are already there for a considerable period is not unheard of in other parts of the economy. It's not confined to the public service. Would that it were. The reality is there have been big changes in the way people are paid in the private sector, and one of those features has been lower entry rates for graduates. And I know that, and I think I'm sure the Deputy speaks to graduates on what the typical entry rate for graduates is. It is quite low and competitive at the moment. But I recognise that in the recession, difficult decisions were taken. That included reduction in the pay for new entrants, and that was seen as a way of being able to bring some people in, but albeit at lower pay. Now, we recognise that that's an irritant for members of the public service, and we've sat down and negotiated with those members, people who've been committed to the Lansdowne Road Agreement, and we have restored substantial amounts of that money. And I recognise that this will be back on the agenda for a successor, and we will continue to negotiate with public servants who have taken a lot of cuts and difficulties in this time to manage that issue. But we have to have that broader context, that we have other responsibilities to meet as well.
Question number 35.